Hey, it's Paul. So I have this rule that whenever I repeat a story, anecdote, analogy in session, it's my cue to make it into a video. So here's this week's story. I believe that children are born without self-esteem, self-worth, or confidence. And you may be saying in the audience, well, geez, Paul, isn't that obvious? But this is a cornerstone belief that I use and I build off of it in my work with helping troubled children, adolescents, and teens. So I believe that children are born without self-esteem, self-worth, and confidence. And they only gain those values through the interplay with parents who are present, participative, involved, switched on. And you see this happen in early childhood. They sit up for the first time and we're like, oh my God, that's so awesome. They stand with support and we're like, woohoo! And oh my God, when they start walking, it's like Christmas all day long. And what happens to that kid? They start to feel like, hey, I'm kind of a big deal. My parents love me. They like what I do. They support me. They celebrate my milestones. I belong in this family. I am welcome. I am loved. I'm accepted. I'm a good person. And that sets the stage for kindergarten and elementary school. They're thrust into situations that are unfamiliar to them. It's scary, but they remember those times at home where it's like, hey, I tried new things. I failed and it wasn't the end of the world. I succeeded and it was a celebration. I can do the same thing here at school. And that starts to have a ripple effect. With each challenge, with each success, their self-esteem, their self-worth, their confidence grows. And really, that's the building blocks of how a well-adjusted child turns into a high-functioning adult. So that's the ideal scenario. But what if you don't have those features in your family? What if you came from a single parent that worked two jobs? They brought you home from daycare, they fed you and put you to bed, but they didn't have any time to talk to you. What if you had two parents, maybe one or both worked, but there was issues between them, domestic violence, work pressures, money problems, substance abuse, maybe issues with CPS, Child Protective Services. Well, then the child's takeaways are much different. They start to feel like, wow, I'm almost like a roommate. So much is going on. I'm almost ignored here. Did they want me here? Do I belong? Am I a part of them? Do they consider my feelings, my thoughts? Sometimes I cry and they don't really come and talk to me, or they tell me to stop crying. So that you can see how the takeaway is completely different. And they start to get a negative view of themselves, like, geez, maybe they didn't want me. Maybe I don't belong. Maybe I should go away. So those negative views of themselves, well, those start to grow. And that starts to have a negative effect in other areas of their life. They go to kindergarten, they go to elementary school, and they start to feel like, well, my parents don't really care that much about me, so maybe there's not much there to care about. And they start to have problems with peers. They have an attitude in school or towards the teachers. Maybe they have an attitude at home. And just remember, kids are egocentric. So whatever's happening with mom and dad or at home, they're going to think it's because of them. So if mom and dad are arguing, it's because of them. Or maybe they even feel like, I'm a bad kid, that's why they're arguing. Or maybe that's why dad's never around and I'm just being raised by mom. I drove dad away. Remember, this is what a kid's mind reasons. So they start to have these views that, well, if my parents don't care about me, then I don't care about me. If they don't value me, then maybe I don't have any value. If they think I'm a POS, then, well, I might as well act like one. And that's the ripple effect that's negative. Now we're talking about junior high, high school. They start missing school. Their grades tank. They ditch. They hang out with negative peers. They start experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Maybe they start toying with gangs. And that's, by the way, right around the time these kids end up in my office. And by the way, you'll see in future stories, this is my favorite population, troubled kids. So what do I do when I work with them? I start to get to know them and I ask them what their view of their parents are. I don't ask the parents how they're parenting their kid. I ask the kid what they think about mom and dad. Ask them like what kinds of struggles do they have, barriers, challenges, do they have mental health issues, struggles with money, did they argue, do they fight, is there substances involved? And usually most of my kids are connecting to something there. I also want to know what the parents' were like. And this I might actually ask each parent. But I'm going to ask the kid, what do you know of your dad's dad, your paternal grandfather? What do you know about your mom's parents, your maternal grandparents? Do you know how they parented your parents? Because that's important too. Because I want to instill in them the premise that maybe your parents, they didn't have the bandwidth, they were overwhelmed, maybe they had mental health issues, or maybe they had poor role models on how to be a parent because their own parents were awful. This isn't about, hey, let's just blame parents for everything. But it is an opening for that kid to consider that, hey, maybe the treatment they got as a kid wasn't because of them. That maybe, for whatever reason, your parent couldn't be there because of something that was going on with them. That maybe your parent was too immersed in their struggle that there was no bandwidth left to parent you. And if my kid client is sort of connecting with this, tentatively agreeing, kind of toying with the idea, I would offer this proposal. If your parent couldn't be there for you, maybe it had more to do with them than it ever had to do with you, your value, your lovability as a child. And if so, it really wouldn't matter who lived in your room. It could be another son, a daughter, a valedictorian, a captain in the football team. That if anyone that lived in your home, lived in your room, if they got the same treatment, then it isn't about you. And therefore, you don't have to own anymore the fact that you got treated poorly because you were a bad kid. And this is sometimes transformative, because if the kid is coming to see me for bad behavior, and they're starting to realize, hey, I'm not a bad kid, I just didn't get the parenting that I deserved and wanted, but it wasn't because of me, then they stop feeling so badly about themselves. And that to me is the beginning of self-esteem, self-worth, and confidence. But if they don't feel like they're a bad kid, these symptoms, they're presenting problems, they almost go away. Because it's like, if I have value now and I care about myself, and now I understand, I'm going to care more about school. I'm going to have better peer relations. I'm going to be nicer to my teachers, my parents. I'm going to start having goals. I'm going to stop hanging out with negative peers and make something of myself. And when I witness this transformation, it's like Christmas. So this story came up this week, so I thought I'd share. And by the way, that's the goal of this channel, Paul's Simple Psych, where I take quips, stories, lessons learned, and I share them with all of you in the hopes that will help you in your journey moving forward. So if you like this story, you like this content, you know what I'm going to say. Please give the channel some love, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Peace.